Welcome back to MonsterTamer, our 2D Pokemon-like RPG created Phaser 3. In our last video, we worked on decorating our new expanded area and we added in our second town. If you haven't seen the previous episode, you can find the link in the description. As always, you can grab the project source code up to this point, along with the completed code for this video, from the links in the description. I'll also include any assets you'll need to follow along, so let's get started. Now that we've finished decorating our new expanded area by adding in NPCs, signs, buildings, and items, the last thing we'll do for our new expanded areas feature is we're going to add in a dynamic spawn location. So currently in our data manager, when we start a new game, we rely on our initial state here for where we spawn our player. So when we went to resize our main level, we had to come back and update this hard-coded value. Instead of doing this, we're going to add a new tile layer to our map data that we can then reference in our world scene and spawn our player in that location. So now to add in that change back in tiled, let's add a new object layer to our main area. We'll do new object layer. We're going to call this player spawn location. So now in this object layer, we'll add in one object. So let's do our encounter tile. Let's do insert tile. We'll choose our tile. Let's place that here in our player spawn location. So now for our tile, we won't do a custom class. We're just going to rely on our X and Y values of where we want to spawn our player. So let's go ahead and save our file. Let's export out our JSON file. So we'll do export, export as. We'll do our main_1 JSON. So now back in our project, we'll just want to make sure we update our JSON file under our assets, our data folder, and our main_1 JSON file. So now for our changes, we'll start off on our data manager. We'll update our initial starting player position. Let's do 0 for our X and 0 for our Y. So now we've updated our player's initial starting position. What we'll need to do is in our world scene, once we launch our scene and we're in our init method, we'll want to check to see if our game has been started from our data manager. If our game has not been started, then we know we need to override our player's starting position based on our data and tiled. If our game has already been started, then we'll rely on our position that we previously saved in our local storage. To add this change, let's jump over to our world scene. Let's come up to our init method. So now at the bottom of our init method, before we update our player's location, this is where we'll do our check to see if our new game has been started. Let's do let, we'll do is new game. We're going to set this equal to not. We'll do our data manager, our store, we want to do get, and now we want to do our data manager store keys, and we'll do game started. We're at a default value of false. And so if this is a new game, we'll need to get our tile map. So let's do const, we'll do map, it's going to be equal to this.make.tilemap. And now for our tile map, we want to pass in our configuration with our key. And now for our key, we want to do our world asset keys, and we want to do our main_1 level. So now that we have our tile map, we need to get our object layer for our player spawn location, and then grab our objects from that layer. So let's do const, we'll do player spawn location object. We're going to set that equal to our map. We want to get our object layer. Now for our object layer name, we'll want to do our player spawn-location. So now we'll grab our objects. And now we just want to grab our first object from that array. So now with that object, we can use that object's X and Y value to set our player's location. So let's do our data manager, we'll do our store, we'll do set. Now we'll do our data manager store keys, our player position. Now we'll pass in our object. So for our X, we want to do our player spawn location object, our X value. For our Y, we'll do our player spawn location object, our Y value. Then we need to subtract our tile size. So now if we save, we'll want to start a new game. So let's jump over to our preload scene. Instead of going to our world scene, let's go to our title scene. We'll save. Now from our title scene, let's do a new game. Now when our game first starts, our player should spawn in front of our house. Now that we have our new dynamic spawn location logic working, we have one more change we need to make to our project to account for our new extended areas. Previously, in our tile level, we added a new encounter area, encounter area 2, for our main road here between our first town and our second town. And then in our forest level, we have encounter area 3. What we need to do in our project is we need to update our encounters JSON file to have these new areas. Currently, in our world scene, since we've manually disabled our wild encounters, we're not seeing any issues. But if we disable this line of code, and then in our game, if we try moving through one of our new encounter zones, we'll see we immediately get an error since we don't find that data in our JSON file. So to fix this, let's copy our object here. We'll paste it twice. So we'll have our second area, we'll have our third area. So for our second area, we're going to keep our same monsters and the encounter rates as our first area. Mainly, these two encounter areas are very close in our game, so we're going to keep our spawning logic the same. Now for our third area, we'll change which monsters spawn and their rates. So let's do our monster ID of 1. Let's do 30 for our spawn rate. For our second monster, we'll do a spawn rate of 40. We'll do monster ID 4. Now let's do monster ID 5. We want to do 30. We'll get rid of our fourth monster, and now let's save. So now back in our game, if we try encountering a wild monster in our second area, we should see we no longer have that bug, and now we're in area 2, and we spawn one of our monsters. So I'm going to come back to our world scene. I'm going to disable our encounter monsters. Now back in our game, I'm going to try moving up to our forest area. Alright, so once we get to our forest area, I'm going to save our game. I'm going to comment out that line of code. Now when our game refreshes, we'll do continue game. So now if we move through our encounter area, we shouldn't see any issues, and once we encounter a monster, we should pick one from our list and spawn that monster. Alright, with that last change, that's going to wrap up our new areas feature. With our new feature in place, we now have an expanded world map where our player can explore a new town, transition to a new forest level, and then transition to some new buildings, and this sets us up later for things like our NPC battles and the ability to buy items from our shop. In our next video, we'll start working on our next feature, our dynamic camera system. With this, we'll define our camera bounds and our tile levels, and then use that in our phaser game. You can find the complete source code for this video in the description below, along with the links to the full series if you need to catch up. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. It really helps others find the series. And if you've been enjoying these phaser tutorials and want to support the channel, I've set up a Ko-fi page. Even a one-time coffee helps me keep making more content like this, and there's a link down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll know as soon as the next episode is out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.